guys, had a great conversation with Mackenzie on her podcast, Raw Thoughts. This episode is being dedicated to Deputy Bolter, who gave his life valiantly in service to his community. And it's also dedicated to every other police officer who has given their life serving our country. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. Give it a listen.
Welcome back, Raw Thoughts listeners, to another episode with me, Mackenzie Tiggs. Today I have Joe Gamaldi on. He is the Fraternal Order of Police National Vice President. I'm very excited for this conversation, really to be deep diving into the conversations of our ambush on police, being able to see what our well-being of our officers are, and how as community members we can be able to step up and take action and be the change that we need. So Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background and what your actual position is with the FOP.
Yeah, so I started my career in law enforcement about 19 years ago. Don't let the face fool you. I got a lot of grays going on here. I started my career in my early 20s. You know, I am over 40 now. Started out with the NYPD. I did 3 years there. I was living in a shoebox apartment. You know, the type that's so small when you open your bedroom door, it hits your bed. And I was like, this is not really what I want for my life. So I kind of looked around, see what you can get for the money. Transferred down to Houston about 16 years ago. Got involved in my local lodge at a local level. I was very fortunate that I found a mentor young in life, a friend of mine, Ray Hunt, who's like a father to me. And he kind of took me under his wing, started showing me the ropes about union stuff. And I still wasn't sure I really wanted to get involved, but this kind of one line changed my entire career trajectory. He looked me dead in the face and he said, how do you expect anything to get better unless you get involved? And I was like, wow, you know, kind of calling me out saying, hey, you want things to be better, you gotta put in the work. So I got involved on a local level, eventually became the vice president there. And then I was the president of the Houston Lodge for 3 years. And then, some people approached me and said, hey, we think you do a great job on the national level. You have a strong voice. It wasn't something I was really looking for, to be honest with you. I was happy doing all the local stuff. But after I spoke to plenty of people, I decided to go for it. And now the rest is history. I've been the national vice president for a little over 4 years now. And basically my job, aside from, the day-to-day operations of the National Police Union, is I need to be a voice for every single police officer that is sitting in a patrol car right now. So that when they're listening to this, or they see me on the news, or they see me doing an Instagram reel, that what I'm saying is exactly what they're thinking, unfiltered. Because in the past, you had, like retired police chiefs or celebrity sheriffs who were always towing the line, or they're always interested in just getting themselves ahead. But what rank and file really want is someone who's going to say, hey, I'm upset about this, and this is what's really bothering us, and really getting that message out to the public.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful, especially being the voice for such a larger amount of people. How do you hear what they're saying? How do they come to you with this concern or this problem so that you can be that voice for them?
Well, one of the ways, and some people don't know this, is I'm still an active patrol lieutenant. I just worked night shift last night. So I'm around police officers every day. Certain people, when they get into leadership positions, they're not active anymore, or they're not on the streets, or they're not interacting with police officers every single day. So a lot of it is just talking with my guys and gals who, by the way, I probably have the best night shift in the entire country. I will put them up against anybody. Their work ethic is incredible. I can't stress how great of a job they do. But also just constant communications with members, and like social media has been a great platform for that. Whether it's I'm talking about health and fitness on Instagram, or I'm putting up reels about some crazy thing that's going on with a district attorney somewhere else, I get that feedback from them. They're sending me private messages. A lot of them prefer private messages than putting something out publicly for fear of some sort of retribution from their agency. But I get a ton of feedback, and it means so much to me, because when someone says, man, I would have loved to have said that, or you captured exactly what I was thinking, or hell yeah, or let's go, or whatever it may be, I know then with that feedback that I've truly tapped into what they're feeling. And that feedback means the world to me, because it lets me know I'm on the right track.
That's awesome. That really is. And I love that you're still around the people, because I think that is an important aspect of actually understanding what's happening in today's world, because so much of leadership, they've gotten off the road, they've gotten off of, communicating with the community members, And it's just a gap that they have now built because they're not in the actual shoes. They're not actually boots on the ground and understanding not only what the community is doing, but also the department is doing. So I really give you a lot of kudos for that.
Yeah, I agree. And also it's very much a generational thing. You know, if you don't interact with people that are 20 years younger than you that are doing this job, you need to understand what is important to them, what do they value? And you also need to look at it from just because they view something different doesn't make them wrong and you're right. And too much of the older generation, I think we're all guilty of this at some point, where we think, well, we know the right way to do things, and these younger folks, they don't know how. And it's like, no, it's not wrong. It's just different. Like when I was coming up, I'll give you the perfect example, and this comes up all the time. You didn't take a day off from work unless you had something going on. You know, I have a family function that I need to attend. It's my child's, dance recital, whatever it may be. Otherwise, you were coming to work. But younger folks now, they have a better work-life balance than we did 20 years ago, and they want to just take a day off. So sometimes they'll be taking a day off, and I'll say, hey, what do you got planned? Because I'm trying to interact, trying to get to know. Oh, nothing. I'm just going to hang out. Okay, that's not wrong. It's just different. It doesn't mean that their work ethic isn't as strong as ours. It doesn't mean that they're not as hardworking as us. And I think every time someone who is older or may have been around a long time kind of, just craps on that, for lack of a better term, you're really missing an opportunity to develop a relationship with them and just dismissing the things that are important to them because it may not be important to you.
Mindbase is the official sponsor of Raw Thoughts podcast. Mindbase is the only mental health and wellness technology platform that goes far beyond their traditional wellness app for first responders specifically. It uses data to optimize a proactive and people-driven approach to first responders' wellness. Please reach out today to see about getting Mindbase into your agency to help our first responders. Yeah. And I love you saying that because the older generations, when we look back at it, they never took care of their mental health. They just continued to push forward. They, instilled this, generational kind of stigma on us that if we do take a day off, that we're weak or we're lazy or we, don't have the work ethic. And especially in the police world, there is so much of you have to keep pushing forward. You have to keep going. And that is important. Yes. However, there's also a point where you have to say, hey, my skills are not even, like, my work is way too heavy. I have life at home still going on. I need a day off for also my thoughts, for me to be able to think through those and make a clear decision. What is your outlook on the stigma within these police departments that has really been a culture and this pressure on them that they can't speak up, that they have to be strong, that there is no weakness, we don't talk about our problems? Because I do think that comes into the generational leadership.
Yeah, I think, here's the thing. I think we're getting better from where we have been, but we're not nearly where we need to be, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I remember we started a standalone nonprofit peer support here in Houston to help officers. This was years ago. And when we went to the department and asked if they could send out an email letting the troops know that we have this, they said, no, we won't send out an email that we have a peer support program. I mean, we've come a long way since then, but I'm just giving everybody a little bit of history. To your point about, not wanting to seem weak or not wanting to, I didn't even know what anxiety was until a few years ago. I thought I was just stressed. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is just stress. And that's a term we used to throw around so loosely. Oh, yeah, I'm just stressed out. I got a lot of stress. I'm busy. And then, when you're having anxiety attacks, you don't even know what it is. You had to have someone actually define it for you. But now I think it's talked about much more openly. I talk about it saying, hey, listen, I have anxiety. I need to work out every single day to burn off that extra energy so that I don't have issues. You know what I mean? And I tell folks too, it's not just, a department can't just say, hey, we're going to have a peer support program, or you can just come to us whenever you have a problem. It has to be an entire culture change. And I think too many police chiefs just want to wave a flag and say, look, we have a robust peer support program. What have you done to change the culture at your agency? And putting a peer support program and offering mental health services, that is not changing the culture. Let me let you in on what is changing a culture. Here's an idea. You teach a class on sleep deprivation and how damaging it can be to mental health and how we shouldn't be pushing officers too hard. But at the same time, you're mandating overtime and not letting people take a day off. Or I'll give you one better. Sitting in a sleep deprivation class at 8 a.m. when you work night shift the night before because they don't even offer training on an evening shift for people. That's the type of culture change I'm talking about. Or, you'll have a sheriff or a police chief come up with an idea and say, we're going to have a physical fitness test. And if you don't pass it, you're going to be fired. Oh, yes. That's the way to get people to get in shape. By shaming them, which, by the way, studies have shown that by shaming people into trying to get them into shape, you actually remove the incentive that they want to work out and they actually end up eating more to try to compensate and feel more comfortable because they heal themselves with food. So that doesn't even work. But instead, how about we have a nutrition class once a quarter where we teach officers, calorie deficits, how to eat better. Maybe even when you're on patrol, these are some safe places to eat where you can track your calories. You can make sure you're getting enough sleep. You can make sure you're hydrating enough. These are all things that can be done to change an entire culture. But they're not interested in doing that, most police chiefs. There's some really good ones out there. You got a great one in Idaho,
Yeah, we do.
Chief Ingram. He does a fantastic job. But there's others who just want to wave the flag and say, I'm making a difference. And I'm talking too much now. This is what I do. But to your point about culture change, you want to talk about stress on the job, right? Absolutely. We are being shot at historic numbers. We had 378 police officers shot last year. That was a record since we started tracking data. That is one police officer shot every 23 hours. Shootings of police officers are up 60% in this country. It is abhorrent. It is an embarrassment to our country that we've allowed this to continue. And that is the stress on police officers because they know they're going to work every day with a target on their back. But you know what's even more stressful than that? The fear that they'll be disciplined even when they follow policy, training, and the law. So you want to change the culture out there, police chiefs? Back up your cops when they do the right thing. You want to change the culture? Stop disciplining them for ticky-tack things that you caught on body camera, which wasn't even the subject of the complaint in the first place. A citizen will come in and say, oh, this officer did this, this, and that. 99% of the time, they didn't even do it, and the body camera disproves it. But, oh, I saw that you pulled away from that location before clicking your seatbelt. Or I saw you doing 10 miles an hour over the speed limit while you were en route to that car. That's what stresses them out. Mm-hmm. Or they get into a minor fender bender accident and they get 2 days off for it. And by the way we do discipline in law enforcement, but it hasn't changed in like 70 years. If you make a mistake, we take money out of your pocket. Yeah, that's the way we should be dealing with employees, where we're really just harming their family and taking food out of their mouths. I mean, the fact that we still do this, but the private sector don't do this anymore. The fact that we still do this is archaic. Instead, for anything that's not criminal, except, use of force, excessive force, anything like that, I get that you have to drop the hammer on people and stuff like that when they do wrong there. But for everything else, why aren't we handling this with training? Why aren't we handling this with counseling? Why aren't we handling this with mentorship? Come on, people, get with the times.
Yeah. I love it. I love your passion behind this. And I do want to give a shout out to Chief Ingram here at Caldwell Police. He has been just a wonderful asset to our community and really changing that culture. And I want to talk about that as well, because I actually just sent them a proposal to coming in and training their officers. And he's like, I love it. I would love to have you in. He's like, budget. Like we can't cover that. And to me, I'm like, here we are spending so much money on bringing new officers onto the streets because we can't retain them, right? So we're spending all of this money up front, yet we are not budgeting. Our legislation, our community, our city council, our commissioners are not budgeting to retain them. They're not putting in and investing into them, into what they're wanting to protect our communities for. And what you're saying as well is just, going above and beyond that. This is not just a career. This is a lifestyle. And people that don't understand that, these police officers, these, paramedics, EMTs, firefighters, the cities that they live in are also the cities that they protect. And it is not just being able to shut off a switch and say, oh, I'm going to drive down the same road like I do every single day that I patrol. And I am looking for, people that are not obeying the laws. I'm looking for different things. I'm also responding to car accidents. I'm responding to burglaries, all of these things that we're going to. Oh, but yet when I have my family in my car and I drive down that same road, you don't want me to think about those things. Like, that is not humanly possible.
Yeah. And, it speaks to like hypervigilance, where we're never sitting with our back to the door, and you're always kind of, assessing the situation, making sure, my wife's an officer as well. And like, for every law enforcement family out there, like, we all know about the plan, meaning if something happens in a certain area, like, okay, you're going to grab the kids and head for the back door. I'm going to do that, and that obviously that's an added stress for every police officer. But like, to your point about retention, resignations are up over 47% nationwide. And I think a lot of what's happening is a lot of officers are just checking out. Where it used to be when you signed up to be a police officer, you were doing 20, 25 years, whatever it was, to get your pension, and then you'd go. And that's not the case anymore. A lot of people are just saying it is not worth my mental health and the things that are going on. Or they're deciding to leave departments and communities that don't support them, and they're resigning and going to communities that do. Oftentimes at a reduction in pay. Now, cost of living may be different to the place they're going, so I don't want to just, completely dismiss that. But it speaks to a point that if police officers feel supported by their elected officials, by their communities, by their police chiefs, they want to stick around. We got into this job, it sounds so cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway, to help people. That's ultimately what we want to do. And then you get into it and you're like, oh my God, what is all this red tape? I'm getting in trouble for this. This is happening over here. The police chief doesn't support me. The city council doesn't like me. Everybody hates me. What the hell is going on? I'm being called a murderer. I'm getting spit on. I'm being cursed at. We need to get back to a place in this country where we respect the profession of law enforcement. And this isn't like some high bar that we need to set. And it starts in all leadership across this country. Whether you're left, right, I don't care. There is something going on in this country right now where officers are being shot, as I talked about, in historic numbers. There is a bill right now called the Protect and Serve Act, which would make it a federal crime to knowingly assault a police officer. So no more slaps on the wrist, no more velvet gloves for these criminals. Federal time. I haven't heard a peep from Joe Biden supporting that legislation or condemning the violence against law enforcement. But I'm an equal opportunity criticizer because Speaker Johnson, who leads the House Republicans, hasn't brought that bill to the floor, hasn't made sure that the Protect and Serve Act is passed the House. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But I will tell you this, politicians sure will show up and, use their empty platitudes and back the blue and pat you on the back, and they'll shed the crocodile tears at our funerals. I've had enough of that. I appreciate it. Thank you. We need action. Yeah. And that's part of the way that we as a country can show that we support law enforcement. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you can say, I 100% support law enforcement when they are doing things the right way, and there is no excuse for violence against law enforcement in this country. That should be a universal talking point, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Yeah. And yet here we sit.
Yeah. And what really frustrates me as well, to this point, as that you're talking about, if it doesn't matter what side you are on, we are all humans. And our police officers are the ones that are protecting our own homeland. Everybody wants to give the glory and the resources to our veterans, and I don't think that should be taken away. However, the people that are actually protecting our own country are our police officers. They're the ones standing up. And the Americans that are, hurting them and ambushing them are Americans as well. Now, some of them not, they're coming across the border. There's a
Hmm.
lot of different aspects to be talking about that as well. However, you talking about, the assaults on these police officers are from our own Americans. I don't care what title, I don't care what label you have. That is people against people of our own nature, and that is sickening. I
Hmm.
want to talk about how do people take action, because this is a drastic, drastic problem. We have people in protests going, defund the police. We have people like I interviewed, Sergeant John Mattingly, who was involved in the Breonna Taylor raid, and he had, hits on him. He had the FBI coming and taking his family away. He had his 9-year-old sitting at, the window with a knife because he was afraid that people were going to start breaking into his house. Like, we have the news that is going against this and trying to completely defund the police. Where is it and how is it that the other side can speak up more? You're doing that. I'm doing that. How do we get more people on this bandwagon to actually stand up and take action in this?
Yeah, so I think there's several ways. So often everybody it gets so focused on national politics. It sucks all the oxygen out of the room. We're in a presidential year. You know that's going to be the case. But there's a few steps that you can take as a regular citizen to show support for us. Number one, contact your congressman and senator and say you want the Protect and Serve Act passed to protect police officers. At least send an email, a contact form, something. Well, let me preface this with I know you are all busy. You have lives. You got to get the kids to soccer practice, to swim practice, to boxing class, whatever it may be. You have a job. You have responsibilities at home. I get that you are busy because I know that if I were a regular citizen listening to this, like, that's all fine and good, Joe. You want me to be involved politically. Like, I'm busy all day. Like, I don't have time to go march in the streets and support police officers. I get it. I appreciate the support. I know you don't have time, but send an email at least. Make a phone call. We can all do that. That's on the national level. Where we really need to see some help too is locally. We're so focused on national politics that we forget about the local city council races, the school board races, the DA races. That is where you get the most bang for your buck. Local politics is where you can see the most change to make a difference in your community. So if your city council is not sitting on a bedrock platform of law and order and supporting police officers, vote their asses out. Show up at your city council meeting. At least send them an email or call and say, no, no, no. In our community, we support police officers. So we want you to fund them. We don't want to defund. We want to give retention bonuses, whatever it may be. But make sure you involve and make sure they're hearing from you. Because often city councils only hear from the vocal minority in the group that just have nothing better to do with their time. So they show up at city council, they scream at them. City council goes, this is what the community wants. No, it's not. It's like 5 people that don't have a job and have nothing to do. So they become activists. And they show up and they yell and scream and they're the loudest voice in the room. We need y'all to step up, send an email, make a phone call, and finally, and this actually may be the one that has the most impact on individual officers. If you see an officer out on the street, just tell them thank you for their service. You have no idea. I can't quantify enough what that means to us. When I'm out in uniform and someone comes up and says thank you for your service, I think about that for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody buys you lunch, I talk about that for a week. And and here's another thing. If you are a police officer and you're not in uniform, do the same.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost you anything to be nice to people. You know what it means to you when someone says it to you. So I do it all the time. I'm in different cities. I'll just go up to a police officer. Thank you for your service. I was in Seattle with my family. We went to a hockey game there. Now, Seattle police officers, you can only imagine the vitriol that gets hurled at them. Me and my daughters, we were going up to each officer and thanking them for their service. You should have seen their faces light up. There was 3 of them in a group with a dog. My God, they started talking to my daughters. They gave them a trading card for the dog. And I mean, it was just a wonderful moment. So if you are out in your community and you see a police officer, just say thank you. You have no idea what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that because it really is just the tiniest little things that you are reminded of, like, oh, this is why I'm doing the job.
Hmm.
And back to your point of wanting to help people, it's human nature for us to want to help others. It is, robbed from us when people don't ask for our help. And so there's so many people in these servant leadership roles, like being police officers, like being a paramedic, and you do want to help people. However, when you continue to just give and give and give and give, and you don't have that support from your commissioners. I mean, I took a $20,000 pay cut. Talk about not having my commissioners back me in what we were doing. And you go out into the city and somebody says just the slightest little thing like, hey, we appreciate what you're doing. You're like, oh my gosh. Whoa, I feel
Yeah.
loved. Like, I feel like I should keep doing this. Like, it's so tiny. And that's also really sad to say that it doesn't take very much for us to be like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it, right? This is why I want to continue to give back. This is why I want to be in people's chaos in their day, because I know I can be that for them. I know I can do what's right. And I know I can hold this safe space for them when it is their worst day. And you, as a first responder, continuing to give and give and give and give. And I want to bring this up about, how do we as first responders, as police officers, take care of ourselves when that stress is so high? Because some departments, yes, I will agree, we're getting better. However, there is a lot of rural places that have no idea where to even start. And so they're just not doing anything. Where is it that we can start taking care of ourselves so that we do not run dry and we can continue to help other people?
Yeah, and if you're a police officer that's listening or watching this right now, the empty well gives no water. If you are not filling yourself up, you can't help anybody. And I'm not just talking about people on the street. You're not going to be able to help your family. You're not going to be present. Your mind's going to be drifting all the time. You're going to be thinking about work or thinking about what happened. For for officers that are out there right now, number one, if your agency doesn't have a program, there are a ton of resources on the FOP website that can help you. There's Copline, which is 24/7 hotline for officers that may need peer support. So there are resources out there for you. But there's also a segment of this that you need to work on your own. And I don't think as a industry we talk enough about fitness and nutrition, or at least we don't talk about it in a way that we should. I see a lot of retired officers or people who have left departments, and they try to sell officers on fitness programs and ebooks about nutrition. But the way they sell it is, hey, you're a fat piece of shit and you're going to die. What are we doing here, folks? Yeah. Like, you're going to let your partner down, you're going to let your family down, and you're going to die. Get in shape. I can't stress enough how much I don't like that. A lot of officers do want to get in shape. Maybe they just don't know how. A lot of officers want to eat right, but maybe they work night shift and they just don't know how. And that's okay. So instead, let's focus on education. Just real quick, folks, if you're watching this, if you're interested in losing weight, the best way to do that is just to make sure that you are in a calorie deficit, which means you calculate your basal metabolic rate, add on whatever calories you're burning throughout the day through walking around, working out. There's a basal metabolic rate calculator online, and eat 500 calories underneath that. Track what you're doing. As long as you're tracking your calories and you stay at a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. You don't even need to start some intensive workout program. Just get 10,000 steps a day. Prioritize protein in your diet because you're going to feel fuller for longer. Also, by eating protein, it actually takes your body more energy to digest protein than it does carbohydrates and fat. It's going to satiate you longer. And not only that, while you're losing this fat that you're trying to lose, you're also going to maintain your muscle. That's just a quick way of how to structure a diet. And there's always a fad diet. And I'm not telling anyone that one way is better than the other. The diet that works, or nutrition plan that works, is the one that works for you. If intermittent fasting works for you, great. If the Atkins diet works for you, paleo, whatever it may be. But ultimately, all those diets are trying to keep you at a calorie deficit so that you lose weight. What are the benefits of losing weight? Obviously, you get physically healthier. Your mental health, by just getting up and moving more and eating right, is going to improve. I assure you that it will. Not only that, your confidence is going to go up as you lose more weight. You're going to have more energy to not only, more energy at work, but more energy at home. So you can spend time with your kids. You can chase them around the house. You can go to the park with them. You can go on hikes with them. You only get one life, folks. And the life expectancy of police officers is about 58, 59 years old. Let me say that again. The life expectancy of a police officer is 58 or 59 years old. We're 50% more likely to take our lives than the general public. So yes, the department needs to offer resources. There needs to be more money spent to have all these resources available. But there is a portion of this that is on us to improve ourselves, to make ourselves a better version of what we are. And we can all do it. I mean, I've learned more about nutrition in the last probably 3 years. You can call it a midlife crisis, whatever. In the last 3 years, and I've leaned down and gotten to the point where I'm happy in my own skin, and I love where I'm at. It's never too late to start, and a program doesn't need to be some crazy workout program that's endorsed by a Navy SEAL and you work out 7 days a week. It doesn't need to be that, but you do need to take care of yourself and look out for yourself.
Yeah. And I 100% agree that there is a portion of, the duty on the department, but there's also a self duty, because when you take away the label of being a police officer, you're a human. And this is something that, is needed and necessary in our everyday life, whether you're a police officer or not. You're a human being, and it is your duty to take care of yourself. It's your duty to be able to know what your needs are and what you want out of life. And when your mind is drifting and thinking about those Twinkies or ho-hos or all of the shitty crap that when people bring to the department, right? It's always cookies or energy drinks or all of the bad stuff for us. That you have enough.
Energy drinks aren't so bad.
They're needed, yes, to an extent. To an extent. But it's that self-discipline. And when you are disciplined with yourself, you can now be more disciplined with how you're showing up in your life and how you're able to provide for people and how you're able to give back to them when you're giving to yourself. And, it is so... I just started tracking my macros, and what I actually started seeing was that I was under eating. I was being so busy that I was under eating. And so just being able to track, what am I doing? That's the first thing that you need to be doing. Where are you at right now? Where is it that you want to go, and how do you get there? Those are 3 very simple steps, and it's going to take self-awareness. It's going to take the time for you to sit down and actually devote the time and energy to it. But if you want to devote your time and energy to being a better human being, on top of being a better police officer for our communities, you have to start with that self-awareness. You have to be able to track, where are you and where can I improve at this? And like you said, it doesn't need to be this very drastic, change. The easiest way is that if we start adding things to our lives. So you talking about protein, right? Instead of taking away what you shouldn't be eating, just start adding more protein. Add more protein. When you're able to do that, now you're starting to feel that, where you're like, oh, wow, my brain is better, my attitude is better, my mood is better. Okay, now I have the capacity to take something out. Now you can eliminate something that is not serving you. Now you can take whatever, if it's nighttime and it's chocolate cake, like start subtracting that, but always start adding first, because now you're not feeling like something's getting taken away from you and you don't know how to fill that void. And then you fill that void with another shitty decision. Mindbase is the official sponsor of Raw Thoughts podcast. Mindbase is the only mental health and wellness technology platform that goes far beyond their traditional wellness app for first responders specifically. It uses data to optimize a proactive and people-driven approach to first responders' wellness. Please reach out today to see about getting Mindbase into your agency to help our first responders.
Yeah, and I think people also think that when I talk about nutrition that they got to eat like salads and nothing else. And it's like, no, I'm talking about, instead of drinking a Coke, you're going to drink Coke Zero now, and you're going to save 140 calories. Instead of buying the 80-20 ground beef, you're going to buy the 93-7 ground beef. You just save some calories. Oh, you're going to do chicken breast instead of frying that chicken, you're going to grill it. Like, there's all these little changes. And not only that, if you haven't, been to the grocery store, pay attention, like there are lower calorie options for like everything now.
Yeah.
So you just look at the things that you're buying and instead buy the lower calorie version. Is it going to taste exactly the same? No, but you're talking about making a difference in peanut butter. You could get the powdered peanut butter that you mix with water. You're saving a ton of calories. You could do Greek yogurt and make yogurt bowls. And by the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, shameless plug, please do. I put recipes on there, and I'm not trying to sell anything either. I just put this information out to everybody just to try to help. But there's all sorts of things where you can still eat all the things you want. You're just substituting out lower calories so that you get yourself in better shape. And what I tell people is like, I know cliche again, find your why, but like, what do you want the last 10 years of your life to look like? And I think it's Dr. Peter Attia, who's a longevity expert. It's like, what do you want it to look like? Do you want your last 10 years to be you sitting on the couch because you're unhealthy and you don't have enough energy? You can't play with your grandkids? Or like me, I want to be that 65, 70, 75-year-old that's chasing my grandkids around Disneyland and Disney World. That's what I want, and that's what I'm striving for. And I think sometimes when you think about it that way, you're like, all right, like these are my goals. This is what I want my years to look like. This is the level of energy that I want to have. And like, what are you going to do today that tomorrow you will thank you for? So like sometimes you'll just be like, man, I really don't feel like working out tomorrow. What is tomorrow you going to say? Not only that, just change your mindset and your lifestyle that this is who you are now. And, like you go on vacation. I was on a cruise with my family, went on a Disney cruise back in October. And I brought my workout clothes and I'm like, I'm going to work out, even if it's just 20 minutes, 30 minutes every morning, because this is who I am now. This is the person, and I either am the person I say I am or I'm not. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, like, oh, you're the nut job that works out on vacation. But this is just for me and what works for me. That entire mindset and lifestyle change applies across the board, and you just stay consistent. You will see the results, and you'll ultimately feel better about yourself. And let me tell you, the dividend is fantastic when you're on some hike with your kids and you can keep up with them and run with them, or you can play tag with them. It's powerful. And not only that, guess what? They're watching too, the kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love you saying that because I didn't realize that that's something that I started changing my own, words to what I was saying in the morning time. Instead of saying I'm not a morning person, I started saying it's what I do. I wake up at 5:30 and I go to hot yoga. It's what I do. Like, I don't have any rebuttal. I don't have any negotiation with me now. Now, do I go to yoga at 5:30 every single morning? No, because there's other times that I do gym. There's other times that I love to sleep in. Like, this is like the ebb and flow of who we are as human beings and just natural instincts. And when you go on vacation, there's so many people that think that going on vacation is just to let the rules be broken. Like, oh, whatever rules I have at home, they're going to be broken. And like, here is my time to binge and here's my time to go and do all the things that I can't do at home. But when it's a lifestyle, like you said, you're still doing it while you're at, on the cruise. You're still doing it when I was traveling, just to a speaking event. I was in the gym in the morning. And you know what I saw? The people that were in the gym with me, which was very, very, very little people. Very little people. We now had more connection. We now had more things to relate on. We now had a better relationship of our speaking engagements and how to help each other, because that was that tiny little time where it's like, hey, they're willing to do something that most people are not willing to do. And I appreciate that. So what are they going to be able to do in my speaking business? What are they going to be able to do in coming onto the podcast? Like, there's more time to be able to have these, kind of like organic conversations and it not be forced and weird and like, you don't know what to talk about. It's like, talk about the gym. Like, that's where you both are, I want to talk about too in this aspect, because it is something that is socialized, like our society normalizes it, and that's alcohol. And especially for police officers, because I've had so many come on to my podcast and we talk about their struggles where, what was their lifestyle? They would come home from shift, they would drink, they would add this depressant onto what they've already seen. And, I don't think it's helping our problem. I don't think that alcohol is the problem. However, it is so normalized to, hey, I'm going to have a drink and now I'm going to feel okay to speak, or, hey, now I'm going to be able to take the edge off of what I've seen for the day, when they're actually not addressing what they need to be addressing. What do you have to say on the alcohol part?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I rarely drink anymore. Very, very rarely. And when I do, it's just maybe a couple if I, happen to be on vacation or, a special event or something like that. But it's very, very rarely. Like, I'll tell people, number one, it wrecks your sleep. You may not know this, but like thinking that you're going to have a drink to help take the edge off so that you can go to bed easier, you're actually wrecking your sleep for that night when you drink alcohol. But that's besides the point, just an anecdote. I think too often, too many officers self-medicate with alcohol in order to deal with all the issues that they have going on upstairs. When instead I think a healthier model is to work on the issues that you're having, what we talked about, working out, eating right, doing those things. Get yourself in a place where you don't need alcohol to take an edge off or to make you feel better. And we have to do a better job as a culture of not so much accepting it as the norm. It's just like, honestly, like just in police circles, it's totally normal. Like everybody drinks and it's just like, it's a thing. And that's nationwide too. It's not just police officers, but
right.
Get yourself in a place where you don't need alcohol to make you feel better or to take that edge off. And then you can use alcohol the way that you may want to use it. Meaning when I'm at a special occasion, or I just enjoy having a whiskey because I enjoy the flavor, or, when I'm with friends, don't make it so a part of your habit that you need it every single day to get through a day, or at the end of your day to get done with it. But we also have to do a much better job, law enforcement as a whole, of accepting that it's a part of our culture and it's a problem, and that when someone comes forward, they're not disciplined for it. Any officer who is struggling with alcohol should be able to come forward at any moment to their department and say, hey, I'm going through a rough time, I'm drinking way too much, and have no fear of reprisal. They should not fear coming forward. And there should be a very streamlined process to get them the help they need into a program. But instead, there are still a lot of agencies where everything is done kind of cloak and dagger behind the scenes. They can say, hey, I'm having a problem, and we'll get them help. But there is no guarantee to that officer that you're going to be okay. And I believe that it needs to be much more open to say, you're having a problem, come forward, we'll take care of you. That's how you change the stigma. So an officer knows, man, if alcohol gets a hold of me and I'm scared, I don't want to report this, I don't want to tell anybody. No, come forward and we'll take care of you.
Yeah, I love that. What about, I think that also goes into the line of so many of, officers specifically not feeling comfortable to coming, to their departments, to their peers about having suicidal ideations, and it getting to a point where nobody knew anything was going on with them. They seemed so happy. They seemed, like that would never happen to them. And then yet they're the ones that committed suicide. How do we get and build a culture where these people, one, don't think that that is an end result and taking their life is the answer, and being able to provide that safety for them so that they can come forward and talk about it? Because so many of the police officers, so many of the first responders that I have personally interviewed and talked with, they always fear the repercussions. They always fear not being fit for duty. How do we break that?
Yeah, it's difficult. I've known 4 people, acquaintances and friends that have committed suicide just over the last 4 years. I would tell anybody that's watching right now, don't take a permanent solution to a temporary situation. If you need help, please reach out. As I said, Copline, on the FOP website, we have a lot of resources, your department peer support. But as a culture, as police departments across the country, there needs to be a much better job done by the higher ups. Like, the union side, like, we're doing our job. We're protecting our officers. We're pushing mental health programs because we understand this is important. But, labor representation for officers, we move like a speedboat. We realize that something's going, we need to change direction, we need to do this. Departments, they move like the damn Titanic, very slow, getting around to the things that are going on in our culture. Departments need to set up an environment and a culture where an officer feels 100% comfortable coming forward and saying, I'm having suicidal thoughts, I'm going through a difficult time, and boom, we get them into a treatment program, we get them into a counseling program. But we also do it in a way that's respectful to that officer. Instead of just saying, you're relieved of duty, go ahead and sit home by yourself now with no one around. And that's really the way we should handle it, right? We should send them home to be alone where they'll self-medicate by themselves. Like, what moron thinks this is a good idea? Instead of saying, hold on, we understand you're going through some trouble. We're going to get you in a treatment program. We're going to keep you around your peers. Okay, maybe you still can't go out on the street. I get it. And it's still going to be a little stigmatizing if you have to work the desk. And I get that. But we also have to look out for the officer's safety to make sure that their head's in the right place. But keep them in the environment of the people that they interact with every day. Because guess what? They're also the ones that you are going to vent to and feel comfortable talking about your issues. Here's another thing. When that officer gets back on the street, how about you have them ride with a friend and partner up so that they have that person that they can vent to? Like, I don't think people understand how valuable it can be when officers ride in a car together all night. And I'm not talking about just the safety of watching each other's back. I'm talking about the vent sessions that happen during that, the good times, the laughter, all those things that can help someone's mental health. But this requires a department to understand that people are going to go through that, and you cannot have a situation where someone comes up and says, I'm suicidal, and then they get relieved of duty at home. Because not just for that individual officer, you've now sent the message throughout this entire department. If you come forward and say that you're suicidal, you'll be relieved of duty. That's it. And you also need to make sure that this isn't held against the officer throughout their career. Because there can be an officer who is 24 years old, has an issue where they feel like they're suicidal, they come forward, well, they get relieved of duty. Well, guess what? What's on your record now for the rest of your career? What happens when you want to go to that investigative unit? You want to go to the SWAT team? You want to go wherever you want to go in the department, the K-9 unit. Oh, so you got relieved of duty here, so you're disqualified. You just wrecked that officer's career. And again, that sends a message to everybody else down the line. We're going to make sure that this is held against you forever. And that cannot be the culture. There needs to be a comfortable environment for them to come forward with no repercussions, short or long term. It's the only way we get around it. And I'm telling you, the younger generation of officers is much more comfortable. There's much less stigma regarding mental health just generationally. So younger officers are not going to be, oh man, did you hear about Joe? Yeah, he was having some mental health problems. What a loser. Nah, chances are they're going to be like, hey, Joe, you all right? Everything good? They don't just say, suck it up, buttercup. So I think we need an entire culture change.
Yeah, I love this. And especially what you talked about, with riding with another officer. I was very privileged to be, as EMS, you always had a partner with you. And the conversations that happened in those ambulances were, first off, very diverse of what we were talking about and what we were saying. I just have to be very clear. I'm like, I know there's videos of me sitting there dancing with my EMT partners. Like, I'm trying to hype it up. And then now we're talking about where blood's coming out of all of these different orifices and like, what the fuck did we just see? Like, oh my gosh. Like, but there was a partner with me that there was two incidences where being in the rig with him literally helped both of us, where we got done with a call and I could instantly tell something was off. And I said, hey man, I said, what's going on? I said, I know that seemed like a pretty routine call, which sounds crazy that it was a single vehicle rollover, one ejection, dead on scene. And then we took the wife to the hospital. Very pretty routine call. And he was like, I don't know. I don't feel right. And I was like, let's talk about it. And so him and I deep dived into this conversation. Mind you, we had about a 40-minute drive back to our station. That is 40 minutes. That's like a therapy session. right?
Yeah.
Everybody that says like, "Oh, I don't want to go to therapy." Well, guess what? The people in your department are the therapists. Like they don't
Yeah.
need a license. They don't need this credential to say that they're a therapist. They are there. They're supporters for you. And I think going away from that word of therapist as supporters for you, they're there to be the pillars to help you stand up when that is. That same partner, we went to a call. It was on the interstate. I always challenged stuff, right? And so I would challenge our Idaho State police officers. I was like, "Oh, you don't want to shut down the interstate? You don't want to shut down both lanes? Watch me do
They must
this."
have loved you.
Sure, sure shit. The officer that I told that to, we were on this call with, and he was like, "Mackenzie," and I was like, I'm so sorry. This is not how I wanted it to play out. Like, this is not what I expected. Like, two helicopters coming in, like hot shotting it. Like, it was just like crazy, right? Well, I was still a pretty brand new paramedic, and you can hear the radio traffic of, our officers that are on scene, their anxiety, the way that they're talking, the tone that they're talking, the cadence of their talking. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what the fuck am I doing? Right. I start having this panic, and I'm like doing my techniques, all of these things. I said that to my partner. I'm like, "Hey, this seems like a lot. Like, I'm going to need you like a little bit stronger for me." And he looked at me and he's like, "Mackenzie, you got this." And sure enough, I get out of the ambulance, my boots hit the ground, and I'm, doing all my things. I'm hopping between both of the ambulances. We got the helicopters coming in. We have the interstate shut down, like all of these things. And we get back into the rig. And he was like, "You would have never known you were scared." And he's like, in me, right? I was able to say, like, this is a lot. We have critical pediatric patients. We have the people didn't even speak English. Like, we were faced with a lot of difficulties. But I loved that I was able to say, "Hey, this is a lot." When we got done with that call, him and I had our own debrief, not only as everybody on that call, but it didn't have to be this extravagant situation that you can feel overwhelmed and not know what to do. You have to speak it though. You have to be able to say, "Hey, I don't know what's going on." And that, yes, there was things that I knew what was going on, but it was just a lot of decisions that I, as a paramedic, and nobody else being paramedics, I was having to make. And that weight on your shoulders when you're the ones that are making decisions for other people's lives, you need to know that the people around you are there to support you. They're there to help you make the right decision. However, when you want to be macho, when you want to be the person that's like, "Nope, I got this figured out. I can do this by myself," that's where you get in trouble. That's where you don't bring other people's insights and other people's eyes and views and perspectives into the situations, because we may be in charge, but that does not mean that other people cannot be able to be there to help us as well.
No, you're right 100%. And like, talking to a coworker, like they know where you're coming from. Like they may have experienced the exact same thing, so they know the feelings that you're having, and they're going to feel more comfortable talking to you because you opened up to them and talked to them about the issues you were having. But you're 100% right. Like the stress of certain situations where you said you're making decisions that will ultimately impact other people's lives, or could have that impact. The immense pressure of that may not even be present in the moment like you're talking about, but then hits you like a load of bricks as soon as you're done. As soon as that adrenaline comes down, you're like, whoa, that was heavy. And for me, it was like any call with an injured child or a dead child for me. The most important thing to me is being an amazing dad to my daughters, and to have to deal with anything child related. It had always been an issue for me since my daughters have been born. And it's just, that's a trigger for me for sure. But that time that you get to just vent all your frustrations is so valuable. Plus, what are you doing in that moment? You can trust the other person. You know that there's not going to be any consequences or judgment or, relieve the duty or whatever the case is. And I think we've lost a lot of that because so many agencies are so concerned about response times, or they have to get something I do on my night shift is like, "Hey, if you want to ride with a partner, we'll make it work. Let's just make it work. You guys are going to do a better job. You're ultimately going to be mentally healthier because you're talking through these issues." And not only that, it's just like, it's good. Like, "Hey man, you seem kind of jazzed up. Like, everything all right? We're good. Like, take a deep breath, whatever." That's what you're there for. So yeah, there's a ton of value in being able to talk to a peer in a informal setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for the listeners, this is actually the number one talk that I get asked to be able to come into departments and speak on is that peer support is more than a peer support team. And
Mhm.
being able to take down the labels and take down the categories of who we are with these titles. I don't care if you're a brand new police officer or EMT or paramedic, you have every right to be able to speak up in a situation and have that viewpoint come to the table. With that, this peer support is more than a peer support team, is that these are the people that understand what you're going through. And so when first responders come to me and they're like, but nobody understands, I'm like, bullshit. Because you have a whole department that you talk to, and they are the ones that know it the best. They are the ones that know what's happening the best. They know what is going on the best. They're the ones that also feel that pressure, and maybe they don't have enough courage to be able to speak it. And so you speaking it first now allows them that opportunity to say, oh, they just spoke up. Oh, they're feeling this. Yeah, I didn't realize that, but I'm feeling the same way.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's important as leaders in general is like, I think we get so caught up with like we need to show people that we're perfect, especially on like social media and all this other stuff. And some of the videos I do, I talk about like, hey, I'm going to talk about sleep and how you need to get about 7 or 8 hours. I'll say in the video, I'm a hypocrite. I don't get it. I get 6 hours of sleep. You know what I mean? And I think too often we try to, put this perfect image out for everybody. And people think, oh, that's what I need to be like. No, we're all imperfect. We all have problems. We all deal with I deal with anxiety. My way is to work out 7 days a week to burn it off. You have to be vulnerable for your people so that they understand that it's okay to come forward. But another thing and I've been hard on police chiefs throughout this interview, but I want to talk about, rank and file leaders as well. Sergeants, lieutenants. Nobody asked you to become a supervisor. You wanted to do that, okay? It is your responsibility to treat your officers with respect and be nice to them. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice to them. And for whatever reason, there are some sergeants and lieutenants who get into these positions of power and they like take it out on these officers. Their fucking existence is hard enough. They're working night shift. They can't take a day off. They're working double shifts. It doesn't cost anything to just be nice. Attempt to keep morale up on your shift. Oh, well, the department doesn't care about morale. That's a cop-out. That's an excuse. You have a responsibility as a supervisor to make it as best as it can possibly be for them. Now, I'm not saying just let them run wild. It's not, let me add this caveat in there before somebody gets in the comments and starts saying it. I'm just saying, do everything you can to make their existence better. Treat them with respect. I've got an idea. Put them in for a commendation when they do something right. You'll damn sure file the complaint if they do something wrong. You should be putting out commendations like, 20-1 for every complaint on your shift. Make sure that they know that they are appreciated and that what they do matters. And if you're not doing that as a law enforcement leader right now in our current climate, then you are failing. It's your responsibility. You wanted to be a leader. Step up to the plate, respect your people, and something that is so forgotten in law enforcement. Happy workers are hard workers. Let me say it again. Happy workers are hard workers. The more that you treat people with disrespect, the more that you drop frivolous complaints on them, the more that you look down upon them, the less work they're going to do. You can't put pressure and put somebody under your thumb and get them to work harder. It doesn't work. It's not human nature. So instead, treat them with respect. Tell them they're doing a great job. Tell them you appreciate them. You know how often at roll call I tell my troops, I appreciate you, but also I'm proud to be their lieutenant. I brag to people that I'm the lieutenant over West Side Night Shift. That means something to them too. I tell them that I go on podcasts and I tell them I'll put them up against any night shift in the entire country. And it's true because they do a great job. But tell them that. It doesn't cost anything to be nice.
And it doesn't cost anything to give a compliment. Like you're so right that we can jump on the negative. We can jump on what you did wrong, how this was messed up, what you could do better. But it's very, very, very rare that you pull somebody aside and you say, you know what? I really saw you. I saw you do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, whoa, he's actually paying attention to me. Whoa, I didn't have to ask for that.
Hmm.
Now your people are feeling seen and heard and valued. Now they want to continue to do that work, just like you said. Now you gave them this little dose of, compliment, which was nice while you said it and was true. Don't be giving compliments if they're not true, or that you just want to check the box, just like you have a peer support team just checking the
Right.
box saying,
Yeah.
we've got it.
We
I'm
got
Joe.
one.
Joe. I'm really proud of you today. No,
Yeah.
actually be authentic with them. Actually be vulnerable with them and tell them what you actually feel. And I know it's a lot of men in police officer, as police officers, like you don't like emotions, you don't like feelings, but I promise you, you are going to feel better when you give that to somebody else. Just start giving them out to people like they're free. Like literally,
Mhm.
you don't have to do anything. And guess what? You don't have to touch anybody, like hugs. Like people are like, oh, I'm going to give a free hug. Like some people don't like to be touched. I love hugs, but some other people do not like it. Being able to vocalize that they're human, that you see them, that, hey, you know what? I understand that you've been going through a hard time, but I'm so proud that you're still pushing through. Like now it's giving them something to look forward to. Now they're feeling valued in the world, not only their department. And now they don't have those thoughts that nobody's there for them. Like that's where they come from when people say, well, nobody's there for me. It's because everybody that is there is just negative. They're all liabilities in their life right now. If we switch that, and
Yeah.
like you
No, I
said in
mean
the,
you're absolutely right. And like, what does it take like for every seven bad comments? You know what I mean? Like it's the way our brains are wired. We're much more likely to remember negative things than we are to remember positive things. So it's your job to accentuate the positive. Make sure that they know that they're doing a good job. Um, I mean, I don't understand why this is so controversial. I can't get people to wrap their minds around it. But like, there's just an older generation that's like, well, that's their job. Like, why do I need to praise them? They're supposed to show up to work. I still remember an old crusty cat. He's retired since then. And he didn't want to sign a commendation because these officers caught robbery suspects. Well, that's what they're supposed to do. I'm like, well, it doesn't cost anything to give them a commendation. What the fuck are we doing here? Like, just commend the officers. But there are too many, like, I mean, you cannot praise them enough. Legitimate praise, like you said, that is heartfelt, that is specific to the job they're doing, and just tell them that you appreciate them. It goes back to what we were talking about with citizens, too. When you just go up and tell someone that you appreciate them, that can carry them for days, weeks, and they're going to be much more willing to work harder for you as a result.
yeah, yeah. Well, Joe, I think I could probably sit and talk with you for hours, and I know our paths will cross in due time of getting to meet you in person. Any last minute, comments that you want to give to people, whether that be the police officers or our citizens of America, of what we can be doing to help protect our police officers?
Yeah, I mean, to the citizens out there, please take note of what's going on locally in your communities. Vote for candidates that support police officers. I don't care if there's an R or a D at the end of their name. If they support law enforcement, support them. And to police officers out there, I mean this as heartfelt as I can possibly mean it. What you do matters. I don't give a shit what the media says or what the activists say. You are making a difference every day in your communities. Keep grinding, because oftentimes in a lot of communities, we are the only ones who care. We're the only ones that are showing up to help these folks. So please know that what you do matters, but at the same time, take care of yourself. The ultimate goal in all of this is to get through your career, go home safely to your family, but that includes retirement, where you are going to have some vitality, have a great life after law enforcement, because you've certainly put in all the work and suffered all the slings and arrows that go along with it. Take care of yourself now. Make that investment in yourself. Start eating right. Get yourself in shape. You don't want to be the guy on that retirement announcement that, 6 months after you retire, 3 years, 4 years after you retire, you drop dead. I see it too often. So you know what? When it's your time to retire, retire, but make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you're there for your family. Because ultimately, listen, it's great being a police officer. It will be a part of your life forever. But what's most important is being there for your family and making sure that they're taken care of. So please take care of yourselves, be safe, watch each other's backs.
I love it, Joe. Thank you so much. And I really do appreciate you coming on, making the time for this podcast and getting your voice out there even more and more to our community members. So, listeners, if you are looking for a support group, I am starting monthly trainings. Yes, your girl finally is doing it, where we are doing monthly trainings. You can hop on a call for an hour with me. I will be teaching different tactics and tools and experiences to be able to get this integrated into, living a better life. And like we have talked about with Joe today, it has been so instrumental that we have to take the duty on ourselves. We have to seek out those opportunities to be able to want to heal and be able to grow and be able to live a healthy life. So please get into the show notes and get on to the next call with me. I love you guys and see you later.